Now we will go to the next slide, please. Now we'll see the job opportunities with the engineering and project management consultants. We call it as EPMC consultants. Engineering and project management consultants require the project cost controllers, quantity surveyors, estimators for preparation of tender documents for the projects. This includes detailed quantity survey, budgeting, costing of the projects. When project goes into construction phase, project cost controllers manage the entire billing, claims, settlement, extension of time, and closing of bills to control the cost of the projects. Basically, engineering and project management consultants, what they do, based on the client's requirement, they prepare the engineering drawings, and then they prepare the tender document that includes the specifications, bill of quantity, and the tentative rates. So these things they prepare, and to prepare these documents, they need the expert people for project cost control, quantity surveys. And then when the projects happen in the execution stage, on behalf of client, they control the cost in terms of expenditure, variation claims, the extension of time, and the closing of bill. So EPMC team also requires the staff for each individual projects on site as well as at head office. Now we'll go to the next slide, please. There are in the market, there are many EPMC companies available. One of the EPMC, PMC companies are Turner Consultants, Mace Consultants. Turner is basically US based consultants. Mace also UK based consultant. Turner and Townsend Consultant. This is also UK based company. Parsons is also US based company. Sistra is a French company. And then Parsons Brinkerhoff is a USA based company. Arup has operations in UK and Australia. This is basically having the international consultants working in India, Middle East, giving us opportunity to understand the project and control the cost. And these companies have their own setup for the process control, the standardization. There are the internal quality policies. So there is a good experience working with these companies. Now we'll go to the next slide, please. The next sector is we calling as International Property Consultants, IPC. IPC requires project cost controllers, quantity surveyors for preparation of real estate advisory to their core or non-core industry clients. Basically, what is IPC? These are the companies based in India, and for the all international or local clients, the international companies which are coming to the India, or the companies in India which are not from real estate background, they are like non-core sector clients, we call them. For these companies, they assist and they prepare the real estate advisory for their investments and for their process control, for their see if there is one cement company, and if they have the big plot in one of the metro cities, and if they would like to start the real estate business on that plot, but they cement industry company don't have the real estate development experience, so they will approach the this IPC and they will get the advisory done in terms of what type of project has to be done, whether it is residential, commercial, or hotel, what is the cost, what is the profit margin, what is the feasibility, the operation cost, what is the demand in the market. This is basically IPC guides the client for their investments. For that particular thing, they also need the project cost controllers to implement the things and prepare the document for the clients. Now we'll go to the next slide, please. Now, next job opportunities with the international finance and investment companies. International finance companies requires project cost controllers to determine the project cost to fund a project or investment in project and monitor the project till end. Some of the international investment finance companies, Blackstone, India REIT, banks, NBFC. Say when the real estate developer or any contracting company or any consultant, they start the work, they need funding. For that particular funding, they approach fund house like banks, like non-banking financial corporations, or many MNCs are also there from Singapore-based companies, US-based companies. So they approach to the these companies for finance, and the finance companies, what they do, they do study of the plot, and they do the study of the project cost. So that for that particular activity, they need project cost control on board. So they can do the evaluation of the what is the project cost, what is the profit margin, and total end-to-end expenditure, and so that they can finance the project. And when the construction happens on the site, periodically they can release the funds. So they will send their representative on the site. They will see the progress of the work in terms of percentage, and accordingly that particular percentage of the funds will be released. So these big finance companies then required the project cost controllers for preparation, initial documentation for initial fund approvals, and then during execution stage, the periodic visit on the site, monthly visit on the site to map the progress and approve the fund release for that particular site. This is important and key position for these financial institutes and companies. Now we'll go to the next slide, please. These are the what we look seen as job opportunities in the industry. Now we will see the actual basic terms in project cost control in the construction projects. Now we are going into technical aspect of the works. So what is project cost control? This is specific procedure used to keep project cost in line with the budgeted cost and planned costs without affecting timelines. The project cost controller need to work out a budget. We call it the budgeted cost. And then during the execution stage, the expenditure has to be mapped and the expenditure has to be controlled without affecting the timelines. So this is basically the project cost control. In a nutshell, this is procedure of controlling the expenditure during planning and execution phases of the construction without altering the timelines. Now, next term is the planned cost or budgeted cost. This is the cost worked out using available drawings, specifications, by doing quantity survey, quantity takeoff, providing the forecast figures or estimated cost for doing the financing of the project. Say as we discussed earlier, developers or the contracting companies, they need to work out the project budgeted cost. So from the based on the drawings, the engineer will work out the quantities, they will work out the rates, then they will come up with the certain planned cost or budgeted cost. That figures will be shared with the management to prepare their business case, the plan their sales rates and project cost. So this is one of the terms we use in our industry. Now we'll go to next slide, please. Next term is cost analysis or costing. Analysis of factors contributing the cost of the particular items in the construction works. This includes cost of the materials, labors, plants and equipments and overheads and contingency. Initially, based on the drawings, we will work out the quantity of the particular project. The next aspect is working out the cost of individual works like concreting, reinforcement, block works, plasters, painting. There are many activities are there. Now for each individual activity, there will be per square feet rate, per kg rate. So that to work out the rate of the contractors, we need to do the rate analysis. To work out the rate analysis, one of the rate is we will work out the material consumptions, the labor use, the plant and equipment we use, the overheads we add, and the contingency. So this rate analysis has to be done by the engineer so that at par cost has for the project has to be worked out. The next term we use it value engineering. This is the procedure in which engineer provide the best alternatives fulfilling engineering requirements with lower cost. So sometimes what happens when the project is planned, the clients or developers, consultants come up with the idea to reduce the cost of the projects without altering the basic commitments. So we do the value engineering, we work out the same things with different alternatives. So for example, if we are using the reinforcement from particular company, then we can check the alternative with the suppliers, and we do the material testings, we do the consulting with the consultants, and then we come up with the value engineering for the reinforcement steel. Another example is for value engineering for the, if you going for the false ceiling works, we'll check with the various suppliers the board cost, the framing cost. Then we can see the alternative, the materials used, the arrangement for the fixing. Another example is the consumption of the steel. See, if the building is 60 story, and if we are consuming the steel with the 11 kg per square feet, we can do value engineering with the consultants, and we can reduce the steel consumptions further, so that we can have the saving on the projects. Now we'll go to the next slide, please. Now next term is cost risk assessment. This is an assessment of the cost overrun, highlighting the management about the cost risk involved in the various works or items. This is basically doing the cost review periodically. Sometimes what happens, the steel cost get increased, the cement cost increase, the labor cost get increased, or because of some other issues, the project gets delayed. Like in the COVID situation, where the sometimes back we had less working hours, limited labor resources, then the overheads project cost has to be increased, the timeline has to be increased. Then accordingly analysis will be done, and what is the cost implication, cost report will be prepared, and then that has to be highlighted to the management, so that management can take their required action. Now we'll go to the next slide, please. Now we will see a case study, and let us discuss a building tower having 5 lakh square feet of built up area. We will discuss how to manage the cost of the project from inception till completion, close out. For the developer's perspective, we'll initially discuss the things. First of all, prepare a concept budget based on the concept drawings provided by consultants. Get management review. Suppose we get the project cost of 325 crores, then management has to be prepared business case accordingly. Suppose if there is a plot, and then based on that plot, the developer plans 5 lakh square foot of built up area for that particular building. In that particular building, then consultant give us the drawings for that particular 5 lakh square feet. Then based on that, basically concept drawings will work out the budget, and then that budget we will share with the management. Then that particular management, the budget will be overlooked. They will review the budget, and based on that budget, they will plan the project cost, end-to-end project cost, and then they will launch the project based on the particular sales rate. So this is first step for the developers for preparing their business case, their budget. The total sales rate has to be worked on the initial concept budget. Now we'll go to the next slide, please. The next step for that particular project is prepare a schematic project based on the schematic drawings provided by consultants, get management approval, freeze the schematic budget, say 335 crore. So as we did earlier in the concept stage, now the consultants will share us the schematic drawings having more information in terms of the what details they are going to implement in terms of the finishes, the facade, the total engineering aspects. They will give more information, and then engineer will again do the quantity survey and again rate analysis, and they will freeze the things at the schematic budget. We call it as schematic level budget, and then that particular figures are worked out, and again that particular figures are briefed to management, and then management will see this figure with their business case which they have prepared, and then they will give go ahead. Then next stage is the detailed design stage, we can call as tender stage. Then in the tender stage, prepare a tender stage budget based on the detailed design drawings, tender documents shared by consultants, get the management node, release the tender budget. In the tender stage, the consultant give us the final detailed design drawing having each and everything mapped into it. Then we'll do the quantity survey, rate analysis, and then we'll prepare a tender stage budget, and that will get management approval. And based on that particular approval, will freeze the tender budget. This is basically an important stage, and based on this tender stage, we will float the tender documents. We will issue the tender documents to the various contractors. We will ask them to submit the bids. Now we'll go to the next slide, please. When we issue the tender documents to the various contractors, they submit their quotes, and then the engineer has to review each quotes, and he has to prepare a file stating the recommendations for low L1, L2, L3, stating the what are the advantage of particular contractor, what are the disadvantages. Complete report has to be prepared by engineer for management's review. Then consider the budget during the tender stage. Then that particular document must have the figures and as well as the budgeted cost overrun, or it is less. If it is less than what we are budgeting, or it is above what we are budgeting, so we have to state how many percentage it is less than the tender stage budget, or it is above the tender stage budget. Then the management awards the work to the various contractors. When work is awarded, monitor monthly billing and recorded. Suppose we have a big contractor on board, then contractor executes the works and he submits the monthly bills. Then particular that monthly billing has to be checked, and then billing has to be monitored, and that particular billing has to be recorded into the cash flow. And then accordingly cash flow has to be prepared for next 6 weeks or 3 months. How much is the work will be done by contractor, how much amount of bill they will claim. In that particular amount has to be considered, and that you have to map in the cash flow and present it to management, so that management will see this cash flow, and then accordingly they will submit that cash flow to the finance company. Then finance company will see that cash flow, and then they will also approve the funding periodically for that particular project. This is very important thing. Then implement the value engineering measures to control the costs. As we discussed earlier, the value engineering exercise has to be done, and then what are the conclusions in the value engineering, that has to be approved from the management, and once they approve it, implementation has to be done. Work order has to be amended, the specification has to be amendment, the cost has to be altered, then contractor also brief for these changes. So implementation of value engineering also is important aspect. Next aspect is monitor the construction schedule vis-a-vis planned schedule. Overhead cost to be monitored. So there will be a dedicated scheduler on site. Scheduler will schedule the construction activities, and he will map the construction schedule. And once he will map the schedule, we have to check with the planned schedule, because if the schedule is delaying, then because of this delay, there will be overheads, cost will get increased. Overhead cost means the plant cost, the equipment cost, the electricity, the staff cost, and other cost is also there because we have the commitment to the client for the possession of the units. If we delay it, then we have to pay some liquidated damages to the client as well. So that cost is also to be considered. So that has to be monitored and that report has to be briefed to the management. Now we'll go to the next slide, please. Then next thing is the variation claims for all the changes in the work. The contractors, they will submit the variation claim changes. Then all the changes has to be considered, mapped. The claims has to be settled with the contractor. Then there is the extension of time and from the contractor, then that claim has to be assessed. See, for the all delays from the clients or any other things, so contractor has to submit the extension of time request for their works, so that contract schedule has to be updated. So accordingly, why there is a change, why there is a delay, that review has to be done by engineer. What are the, suppose we have a heavy monsoon season or any other material issue, or there is a delay from client from the drawings, there are changes from the drawings, everything has to be mapped, and then accordingly a detailed assessment has to be done. Then final thing is settle the final bills, close out the project. Then what are the all the contractors bill has to be integrated, the claims has to be settled. Once project is done, the final closure of the bill is done, then accordingly full and final settlement of the project is done, and final project cost is closed. So suppose we end up the project cost with the 350 crore. We initially started 325, and then with the extension, variation changes and overheads, cost overruns, we end up with 350 crores. This is basically one of the case study we have gone through for particular 5 lakh square feet of development. So now we will go to the next slide, please. Now everyone has the questions that how we can enter to particular this domain. So we have to complete our graduation or diploma, engineering, whatever the technical certification is there. Then we need to do a certification for the project cost management, project estimation or costing or quantity surveying. That certification will give us the best industrial practices, understand the procedure, and then methodologies, the latest technologies, so that we will understand what is there in particular that domain in detail. Now we'll go to the next slide, please. Then after completing the certification, we need to have a mock interviews for that particular domain. And then next step is update our CV, resume with the key skills. And that has to be reviewed by some engineer, because while if you search on the job portal, the job portals runs on the automatic tracking system, ATS. The ATS will search only key skill, where the recruiter, they will enter particular keywords and they will search, and then accordingly that resume will get shortlisted and they will get the call. So this is basically resume writing also is one of the key feature to get the job. Then when the resume is prepared, upload the CV on the job portals. There are many leading job portals in the market. We can upload it CV on that portals, and we get the good calls. And when we get the calls and attend the interviews, clear the various rounds of interviews, then join the new job. This is basically end-to-end process from learning the domain, understanding the domain, and then preparing for industry and getting the job and implementing the what we have learned. So this is basically we have completed the explanation, the illustration for this particular domain.